Hello YouTube! Today in the Naughty Librarian I'm going over my favorite books of 2021 that weren't romance. Are there romance in them? Some of them maybe, but like I would say these are all mostly like fantasy. These are my favorite fantasies of 2021. Let's start things off here, why not, with a nice horror pick, and I have The Diviners by Libba Bray. Now, is this a surprise? Probably not. Like, this is a very, very well-beloved and popular series for like a lot of people. And I finally started reading this in 2021. I finally did it. It took me so long to do it because like this book is a chonk. Like, look how chonky this is. But I did it. I did it in October. And this one, like, nobody told me how like scary this book was. Like, I knew it was like horror, but I thought it was like paranormal YA adventure, you know? I didn't think it was like horrific. And like when I tell you it's horrific, like I'm not being facetious. Like, oh my gosh, people get disemboweled. Like, it's a lot. The whole idea here, this is like roaring 20s going into Depression era New York, so like the 20s and the 30s. And we're following this group of people and they all have like a magical ability and they're the diviners. They have to like get together and when their powers combine they can like save the world from other supernatural threats. And in the diviners in particular we're dealing with like a serial killer kind of pseudo like religious cult ghost type of situation here. And oh boy, from chapter 1 it is insane already. Like in chapter 1 some people are playing with a Ouija board and you're just like, things are gonna go downhill from here, and like, oh man, things get crazy like right away. So it's very, very dark. If you have like trigger warnings, I suggest maybe trying to look up some of the things that happen in here. It's very, like a lot of the graphic violence, I wouldn't say happen on page, but you definitely see the aftermath of. So I think it's scarier that you're not seeing exactly what's happening. You only see what happens afterward. So yeah, it's very dark, very scary, and I can't wait to finish the series. So yeah, I think it's definitely a favorite pick for 2021. I'm gonna go ahead and put Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff on this list as well. Again, look at the chonk factor here. Like, this is another chonker of a book I read. There's also a lot of like artwork in it as well, and it's got a lot of like crazy things happening. It's a dual timeline. There is the one timeline that happens like chronologically first. So we're following this guy Gabriel from like being like a kid and growing up, and then we're following another story that obviously is like the last bit of a story that ends with him in the present. But this one is a fantasy world. It's kind of it feels very French Catholic, I guess, in like vibe, but basically scary vampires. They're not like, oh, romantic vampires where like they'll just bite you, but in a sexy way. No, these ones will bite you and then rip your throat out and like dance in your blood. Like, they're creepy, scary vampires. And Gabriel is what's known as a silver saint. Essentially, they are kind of like a holy order of like warriors, and they fight vampires. And they also get tattoos done with actual silver. So they're like a silver saint. So like their skin literally will burn vampires. It's like a cool thing. And so, I mean, like stylistically, I think this is great. It has a definite sense of time and sense of place. The world building I felt like was well done. You know, it's a big epic fantasy with vampires and coming of age a bit and becoming a warrior. And then also, so we're seeing like this hopeful kid grow up, and then we see like who he is in the present, which is not that hopeful kid anymore. So you know, along the way a lot of horrible things have happened to him. So we're kind of meeting the man behind the legend, the last silver saint, Gabriel. And, you know, it's just like, whoa, what's going on here? Like, how did he get here? Like, that's the big thing. And it keeps you reading, like, how did he get to where he is now? And I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to read the next book in the series. I don't know if that's coming out in 2022 or we're going to have to wait another year because they're so big. I would expect it's going to be a 2-year wait, which sucks. But I am going to read it when it comes out. I want to see where this is going. I loved it. Speaking of dual timelines, I also absolutely loved The Ruin of Kings by Jen Lyons, and I read almost all of the books of this series. The finale book for this 5-book series comes out in 2022, I believe in May, so I already have that pre-ordered. I am obsessed. Now again, chonker of a book. And this is the softcover version, and it's still a chonker. This is like 576 pages. So it's a chunk of a book. Now, trying to narrow down the scope of this series into like a couple minute review is almost impossible because it's so expansive. But the basic idea here is that we're following this guy. His name is Kieran, right? And he is kind of destined to destroy the Empire. And, you know, like a destiny type of thing. And also there are, you know, demon hordes that are trying to go on hell marches throughout the land and kill everybody. So they're like, well, we got to stop these demons. And also there's evil wizards and dragons and all kinds of stuff. And this is multiple timelines. So we're dealing with Kieran in the past and like his origin story. And then also Kieran in the present of this book and kind of telling the events that led to him being in the present. So it's two different stories going on concurrently. So again, if you can keep that organized in your brain, I really recommend, but it's so good. And like, it's very expansive world. There's all these different cultures in it, and they all have very particular like feelings about like religion and the world and like how their social structures are. Everything is very distinct. So like the level of world building going on here is insane. So if you're a world building nerd, like you were really gonna get into this one. And it's just good. It's so fun. And like Kieran is so lovable as a hero. And then it just continues on from there. And like, mind you, I'm 4 books in and each book has been dual timelines. So they are complex. And I'm ready for that big finale. And this is the book that started it all. And it's so good. I had so much fun with it. I didn't care it was multiple timeline. Like each story was great on its own. So like just having 2 stories that were great in one book. So I'm like, yes. So basically they're trying to save the world from demon hordes. Like that's the very basic idea here. But it gets weird. There's gods and goddesses, there's demons, there's dragons, there's evil wizards, there's reincarnation as well. So like it gets very complex, but it's very good. So these 3 of my favorite books all kind of have like a similar vibe where they're like dark romance with morally gray characters. Surprise hit was The Shadows Between Us by Trisha Levenseller. Like, Trisha Levenseller was like an author I had written off at one point because like I really just disliked Daughter of the Pirate King, which is like a series she wrote, and like, oh boy, did I just hate it. So this one was on my shelf, and like, honestly, Madison over from Paperback Princess, she told me to read this, and I was like, okay, and I did, and I was like, bitch, this is good. So it's kind of like an evil king and queen origin story, but like they're the protagonists, so you're like rooting for them, and they are horrible people. Like if this was like another fantasy novel, these are like the evil king and queen that they're trying to defeat, and you're just watching them rise to power and be completely ruthless bastards. And like they're meant for each other. They're both ruthless bastards. Like I'll just give you like a little taste here. This is chapter 1, sentence 1. They've never found the body of the first and only boy who broke my heart. And they never will. Dun dun dun. So like it starts off with a murder. So we have Alessandra, right? And she is a very ambitious young woman, and she's like, basically, here's my plan in life. I'm going to seduce the Shadow King. I'm going to marry the Shadow King. And then I'm going to kill him and be the queen. Like she has a goal and she is fully committed to it. And so, you know, through like scheming and like evil deeds and like hurting other people and stuff, she's not a good person. She gets into there and then meets the Shadow King, and of course, like, she kind of gets her wish, although they fall in love so she doesn't kill him. Sorry, spoiler. But like, he's equally as a bastard as she is. He's not like, oh, he's misunderstood but secretly kind. It's like, no, like, he kills people all the time. Like, eventually he finds out about the boy that she killed because he like rejected her, and he's like, oh my gosh, you killed him? Whatever, fuck that guy. I would have killed him too. Like, he's like totally cool with it. Like, they're both horrible people. So it's kind of really fun just rooting for the villains, you know what I mean? Like, they don't give a shit about nobody. They don't care about poor people. They're not trying to help anybody. They're just trying to be king and queen and like rule, and they don't give a fuck. And so part of me just like enjoys the sheer villainy of this, you know what I mean? They're both terrible like people. They murder people. They like are just ruthless. And that's the enjoyment factor here, you know, just letting bad guys be bad guys and seeing like, oh, but they love each other, la la la. And also it's it's fairly short. I think it's like a little over 300 pages. Yeah, you know what? It's like 326 pages. This is fairly short. You could probably read it in a couple days. But yeah, it's a fun ride. I had so much fun with this. Also on this list, I have In the Ravenous Dark by A.M. Strickland. In this world, like, necromancy is a full thing. Basically, you can get ghosts and, like, hook them up to, like, a mage, and then, like, they, like, live with each other, and then the ghost can, like, do things and make, like, the person stronger, but it could also, like, hinder the person, so you don't really want to get saddled with a ghost. So we're following Roven. She kind of, basically she has to save the world from the evil king, so she has to incite like a rebellion amongst both the living and the dead to, like, you know, fix this, because like the evil king is so evil, he's literally killing the world. Like, if he succeeds, like, the world will just die and everyone will just be dead. So, there's that. And also she is, pansexual, polyamorous. She has, both a boyfriend and a girlfriend by the end of this book. And, yeah, so it's very interesting from, like, a queer representation point of view. It's got polyamory in it. It's got, like, blood magic and necromancy, and then, like, fighting against bad guys, and, like, our heroine, very morally gray. Love her. There were some lines in this book I literally laughed out loud. They were very funny quips. So it had everything I wanted, and hot damn did I enjoy reading the shit out of this. So much. It's so good. Again, not super long. You can totally read it in a couple days. It's just a fun time. Like, I highly recommend this. I also have A Lesson in Vengeance by Victoria Lee. Now this one is like a romance that's not really a romance. It's like, oh boy, that's toxic. So this is dark academia, and we're following this girl, Felicity. And basically this is like a school that kind of has a lot of its origins in like witch trials. And a lot of the girls who went to this school, they were kind of like tried as witches and executed. So these girls are like obsessed with them. And there's like a whole thing with like magic, like, is the magic real? Is it not real? At times it feels like very ambiguous. Like, is this character experiencing magic, or are they having a mental breakdown? You're not 100% sure at times. But anyway, Felicity, she's back at school this year because last year her girlfriend died, and, you know, she kind of had a mental breakdown about it. So she's back at school and she's like, okay, you know what? No more black magic. I'm not fucking with that no more. I'm just trying to get through my last year here. Enter Ellis. She is kind of like a prodigy, you know. She wrote a novel that's up for, like, you know, like a Pulitzer, basically. She wrote like this incredible novel, and everyone's like, oh wow, the wunderkind. So she shows up, and of course she and Felicity end up starting like this romance that's really super toxic, because immediately Alice is like, oh yeah, let's play with black magic again, and Felicity's like, oh shit, here we go. And basically just like encourages all of Felicity's worst impulses. And it doesn't have a happy ending. I'm just gonna say it there. It has a very fucked up ending. And there's a lot of like just psychological stuff going on here. Like, is this person have magic, or are they experiencing a mental breakdown? Who is lying? Who is not lying? One thing that I don't think is ever in question is like, wow, is their relationship toxic AF? It's technically a love story, albeit a messed up one, but it's wow. It had some twists at the end that I did not see coming, and I was like, oh shit, that took a turn. So, I mean, I already like knew I was gonna like this probably because I like Victoria Lee. Like, I read her other series and it's incredible. So going into this one, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I have to have this. I pre-ordered it and I read it and like immediately loved it. It's so good. So if you like toxic relationships, if you like dark academia, if you like psychological stuff, like this is the book for you. You have to go read it. Let's kind of stay on that dark academia like vibe for a minute, and I have The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. Oh man, Simone St. James is another one of those authors that I just found in 2021 and I'm also obsessed with. Like, I've pre-ordered the next book this author's written, comes out in 2022, already pre-ordered it. And The Broken Girls is phenomenal. It's so good. This has a dual timeline as well. There's a story taking place in like 1950 at this like all-girls boarding school, and then another story taking place in the modern era. I would say like 2014, so it's not like super modern, but like the modern era, like now. And this school has a dark past. It's a boarding school for girls that are unwanted. Maybe, you know, a daughter that was born on the wrong side of the sheets, so to speak, you know, like a mistress's child, or just they didn't want them. So they're rich parents who just dumped their kids here. We're following this group of girls in like 1950, and like the friendships these girls have are very complex, and they're all very different characters, but they have this bond between them, and that's kind of what's carrying the story forward. And both timelines were dealing with a murder mystery. So in the 1950s, one of these friends does go missing, and they're trying to figure out what happened. Come to the present day, and we have this woman, Fiona. She is a reporter, and like, I don't know, like 20 years prior to then, her sister was murdered and found on the property of Idlewild, which is the name of the school, which had then been defunct. It was no longer active. It's abandoned. And her sister's body was found there. So that's like her pull to this site. And there's also ghosts. And I don't mean like, oh, metaphorical ghosts that are our damaged past. It's like, no, there's some real ghosts here and doing ghosty shit. So if you want a horror book with ghosts, like this will give it to you. It's two different murder mysteries, and they're both kind of entwined with each other a little bit. And also there's ghosts. They have complicated female like friendships, complicated women characters, and they're both kind of connected in a way. And I loved it. I loved like the character building in this. It's incredible. And also murder mystery, also ghosts. So like it has like a lot of things I look for. And speaking of like psychological horror, let's get into The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. Holy moly, was I shocked and stunned and amazed by this book. Like I didn't really have a lot of expectations going into it, but like hot damn was this incredible. This is kind of like a sci-fi feminist reimagining of Frankenstein. Already you probably are so into this. So we're following this woman, Evelyn. She's a scientist, and she has been working on cloning technology. And she had this ex-husband, and they're divorced, you know, horrible marriage for multiple reasons. And then one day she meets Martine. Martine is their husband's new wife, who isn't a clone of Evelyn. He literally cloned his ex-wife and reprogrammed her brain so that she like obeys him and stuff. So already, what the heck? And the thing is, if you create something with sentience, they don't always obey. And then what do you know? Martine goes to Evelyn. She's like, hey, I need your help. My husband's dead. By the way, it's your husband too. So they have to like hide a body and kind of figure out what's been going on here. There's a lot of Frankenstein inspired things going on here because they're literally cloning people. You know, like, oh, it's alive. I've brought this like thing to life. I've cloned it. I've made a person. So it has that going on here. So it has all that sci-fi, and it also has just really intricate relationships with Evelyn and Martine, because Martine's literally a clone of her. But like completely different. And it's like, oh, if maybe I lived a different way, like I could have been Martine. And if Martine lived a different way, she could have been me. And it's just like an interesting friendship they form. And it's just really complex. So it's feminist. It's talking about, you know, being a woman in STEM as well. And just like how the world perceives you, and how like you have to act a certain way to live in this world, and then, you know, creating women to act that way naturally. So it's got a lot of layers going on here, and it's incredible. Like I was blown away by this, and I honestly have been thinking about it ever since I read it in like the beginning of 2021. It's so good. So speaking of like societal expectations, let's get into Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. And the second I finished reading this, I was like, hot damn, this is phenomenal. It is incredibly good. So we're following Bree. She's a young woman in like the South, like Virginia, and she needs to get away from her home because basically her mother just died in a horrible car accident and things are not good, and she just needs to get away from that for her own mental wellness. So she goes to UNC Chapel Hill, which is like a university, but they have like a system where like younger high school kids can like take semesters there in advance if they're like gifted. And of course she's gifted, so she gets into the program and she kind of moves to this college campus. First night on campus, wouldn't you know, she sees a magical monster attack fight thing. Turns out there is a dark academia vibe here going on with like a secret society, and basically in this world, like King Arthur and his knights and Merlin and stuff, they have a system of being kind of not necessarily reincarnated, but essentially, but they can use their descendants' bodies as like an avatar to fight off, you know, bad, evil stuff that's going to destroy the world. And it's this like King Arthur's court that's been going on ever since then. And the descendants of all these knights and stuff are part of this like secret society. And since Bree can see the magic, she has some thing going on here. And so she wants to get more into this because she feels like it also might have something to do with her mother's death, which is suspicious. So all of that sounds great, just as like a cool fantasy concept. Love it. But the thing that really sets us apart is Bree's character as a person, because Bree is a young black woman in the South, and that has its own trials and tribulations on top of all this magical bullshit she's dealing with. So you also get into, you know, just like everyday racism that she faces. Also, she's a woman, so she gets sexism on top of it. And also magical ability, she's kind of just like falling into needing to figure out like, who am I? What is my actual like ancestry? And it goes back way farther than that, and they get into like lots of different generations of her family, and it goes you into like places you aren't expecting. And like honestly, like I kind of guessed like the big reveal, but like was I disappointed that I was right? Absolutely not. I love that I was right. And I've already pre-ordered the next book of this series, which doesn't come out until November of 2022, which I am bummed about because it's so far away. But yeah, this is phenomenal. Like it's one of those books like I was like, hot damn, like I haven't read a book that I said, oh my gosh, phenomenal, after I read it in so long. Last favorite book is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. And like, I don't think this is necessarily a surprise because N.K. Jemisin is like a literary genius. Like every bit of hype this author gets is completely earned, like genius. And this is a series that like, I don't know, I just kind of got randomly from Book of the Month because I just wanted to read something by N.K. Jemisin. And it's such a cool concept, and I'm so glad I read it because hot damn, was this like immediately good from like page 1, chapter 1. Like it's already great. In this like world, basically, when cities get to the point where they have so many humans in it with all of their hopes and ambitions and dreams and fears, etc., all of this like emotion and mental stuff going on at the same time, it actually forms its own entity, and the city is then born. The city becomes its own living entity because it's so full of other stuff. It becomes sentient, essentially. And they walk the earth through avatars. And that's all great. Like, that'd be a cool story on its own. But of course, you have to have something opposing this. And basically, there's interdimensional Lovecraftian demon monsters who try their best to have cities not born. They don't want that to happen. It's something with reality and like different multiverse things. Like, I'm not going to get into all the speculative sci-fi stuff here because it's a lot. So basically, these avatars of cities have to fight these Lovecraftian demons to, you know, have the right to exist, have the city be born. And we're following New York in this one and its birth, and it has all these different avatars from all the different boroughs, and they have to fight off Lovecraftian demons. And the thing is, all of the boroughs of New York are distinct, so you have a very distinct person representing it. And they all kind of have to team up, and some of them are not good people, and some of them are confused and easily manipulated people. So it's very different characters all trying to come together, / conflict / Lovecraftian demons. Like, it's got a lot of stuff going on here, and I'm obsessed with it. I just want the next book. I don't know when it's coming out, but like I want it so bad. Like, I don't know if it's going to continue on with New York or be a different city, but there is more to New York story that they have not completed. So I am excited. It's so good. I just love it. Okay, so those are all my favorite books of 2021 that weren't romances. I mean, some of them had romance in it, but that wasn't the main point of the story. Let me know in the comments down below, what were some of your favorite books from 2021 that weren't romance? We're gonna go just non-romantic books or, you know, fantasy, what have you. What were your favorites? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon. Bye!